Hi, Empress Justice here. Yep, I'm in bed again. It is what it is, man. Like, it is what it is. At this time, I end up bleeding so heavy that I can't, that literally nothing helps. So the only thing for me to do is just stay indoors and just make sure I cover everything, cover all surfaces that I sit and lie on. I've had the ultrasound and they haven't found anything unusual, nothing cancerous. So guys, don't worry about it. It's just a combination of the fibroids and the DEW weapons hitting my womb for now. It always results in this type of bleeding. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I was supposed to be promoting my readings. Jeez, what a what a fucking segue. All right, let me start over. Okay, so if you want to check out my daily readings for Empress Justice Tarot, you can check them out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you'd also like to check out the new moon in Rohini reading, you can check that out on Empress Justice Tarot YouTube. Now, when it comes to the June reading, I might either do it tomorrow or Monday. Most likely I'll do it. I don't know. I'm bleeding a lot, so I have to kind of plan around this. I might just do it tomorrow. If I had, if everything is okay today, I might just do it tomorrow. Something's telling me that the best time to do it is probably Monday, but I'll most likely do it tomorrow. If you don't get it tomorrow, then you'll get it Monday. But the June reading is definitely coming. I've been preparing for it on top of the daily readings that I'm doing. So yeah, you will definitely get it like over the weekend at some point. So nothing to fear there. There might be some noise pollution while I do it because the way I call it there, the quiet period is going to be coming to a close soon. So the harassment is going to ramp up again at some point. It always does. Yeah, so that's just something that I have to watch out for. But I'm sure it'd be fine because the last time, the only reason it upset me is because I thought it might show up on the phone. But the thing is, because you can't hear very much on the phone, it doesn't present too much of a problem when you play it back. So yeah. And if it does, it's evidence anyway. So either way, it's win-win. So yeah, either tomorrow or Monday. And just be prepared for noise pollution because it will happen. Always happens during my readings. Well, 9 times out of 10 anyway. Last 2 readings were okay. But yeah, so that's that. There was a taunt earlier or a gaslight earlier. And it just feels like there are things that happen today. It's not that nothing's been happening. There have been things happening. And you get little gaslights here and there. But it's like, because of the damage that's been done as a result of what's been done to me, it's difficult for me to have my feelings hurt that much anymore. I mean, it annoys me when people try to get my attention through being childish and just like, it's very draining. It's very draining to put up with. But so much has happened and so much is going to happen. It just makes you think, now why get upset over pay shit? I'm sure, listen. I'm sure that as soon as my hormone spikes again, or something happens, or like, it'll go right back to, fuck everyone. I hate everyone. You, fuck you. Okay, fine. I'm sure at some point, sorry about the mess there. Yeah, there's a lot of mess there. I'm sure, right? that it will go back to me yelling and cussing on here again at some point. It's not like it's not gonna fucking happen, okay? Like at some point it will go back to me. Yeah, it'll go back to everybody screaming and yelling about the same shit, and me screaming and yelling about the same shit, screaming that I'm right, which I usually am anyway. I'm sure it'll go back to that, but at this point, I feel that it's just pointless to get upset about petty shit, and it's petty. It's petty, and the thing is that continuing to do petty shit, even when you know it's costing you, like just to be able to make me upset, like making me upset is just not worth all this. It's just not worth all this. It's not worth all this. Torturing me and doing all this to me is just not worth, it's just not, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. It's just not worth it. So at this point, why should I be upset? It's just not worth it anymore. It's just not worth it anymore. It's not even worth doing it to me in the first place. So why is it going to be worth getting upset? And honestly, I don't know what's happening with the family upstairs. I don't really care about what's going on in their lives. The only thing that I really care about is... Actually, no, that's not true. I at the very least, I was willing to leave at one point because I wanted them to be like... I didn't want them out on the street. I didn't want a young family out on the street. Like, that's literally the only thing I care about. As long as they're not out on the street and as long as their normal life isn't affected, I'm good. So other than that, I don't really care about the ins and outs of their dynamics or what's going on up there anymore. Well, I never cared. It's just that it's just very easy to see through. But what interests me is how quiet everyone has been, how relatively quiet everyone has been. It makes me think that something else might be going on, but I don't know what yet. It remains to be seen because they're not going to keep that up. They're not going to keep that up. So it kind of remains to be seen what might happen next when it comes to me. One of the relatives was banging on about the N-word again, and I'm like, I mean, okay. Okay. Up to you, mate. It's your life. But anyway, so, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I have no idea. Something could be popping off, but I really don't know. I don't know. It just remains to be seen. I'd let you guys know about Jules Scott. Sergeant Jules Scott, who was talking about being in fear of her life, and Lord, here comes the bullshit. So on the one hand, you've got T.I. saying, "Oh, it might be a ruse. It might be a ruse. It might be," I'm thinking, even if it is a ruse, right? And the thing is, we've seen that the US government tried to manipulate the situation anyway in order to make people like us, who have been talking about Havana syndrome the whole time, who have been talking about the type of experiences that army sergeant was talking about. We've been talking about that the whole time. And we knew at some point that what the media was going to do was take all the experiences that we'd gone through and separate them in the public's mind, make them into disparate subjects so that nobody will put two and two together. We knew this was going to happen. But hear what, right? With the plight of Sergeant Scott, and with 2 fucking shootings within 10 days, all taking place in the US, where there is the most defense spending, We already know that they have directed energy weapons. We already know that they have psychotronic weapons. We already know that they have sonar devices used for crowd control. So we already know about the nanobots and nanobots or whatever the fuck it is. Not nanobots. It's not nanobots. It's nanobots. We already know about the nanobots. We already know about nanodust. So putting all of those things together, do you seriously think that at the very least we won't get more TIs who have been aware of the situation onto our plight? Do you seriously think at this point it's going to be that easy to ignore? We've been talking about this shit for years. So, like, at the very least, we'll have more people who are aware of their situation that will come to us and say, look, yeah, this is exactly what we're going through. We've seen video evidence of people being targeted with electronic weapons, seeing light bouncing around the place, and people thinking that it's paranormal activity. We've literally seen everything. We've seen these things. We've seen spotlights being used. We've seen apparently there's a device that beams a spotlight, and I don't know exactly how it works, but apparently it carries specific frequencies from one place to the other, so you can hear voices whilst that spotlight is being used. So there's technology like that in existence. There's all types of shit. There's voice to skull already. Specific frequencies are sent to your cochlea, your ear bones, so it can look like you're hearing voices in your head when really you're just being sent specific frequencies to the bones in your ear so that only you can hear what's going on. So we already know there are all kinds of technologies like that out there. We already know that. Now combine everything that we know about that, about what's, combine everything that we know about that, and then add to the fact that there's been 2 shootings in the last 10 days. And then add Sergeant Scott's situation. Even if the Sergeant Scott thing is a ruse, and again, I don't know, I don't believe that it is, because a very prominent TI, Ramala D, was sectioned for like 72 hours, and they let her go. I think she was supposed to be in there for 72 hours, but they might have released her early. But another TI, Ramala D, was sectioned when she started talking to high-profile TIs. There was another TI being sectioned. Me and her aren't on good terms right now. But this still needs to be said because her plight is important, right? There is another TI from Bournemouth who was sectioned, okay? No matter what we had, this is true. This is absolutely true. This is what she went through, okay? She had been talking to other high-profile TIs and other experts in the field. She'd been talking to experts in the defense technology. She'd been talking to people who are high up, who used to be in government but now have turned whistleblower, and they're speaking out. They're basically divulging everything about gang stalking. This TI from Bournemouth got sectioned over that. And not only was she sectioned, I'm going to come out and say it. Blatant attempts were being made on her life because they knew she had type 1 diabetes. They fucking knew she had type 1 diabetes, and they still gave her medications that fucked with her blood sugar levels whilst refusing to give her diabetic medicine. They were trying to kill her. So shit like this happens all the time. It happens all the time. People get too close to the truth. Here comes mental health. So even if this is a ruse on Sergeant Scott's part, which I don't believe it is for a second, even if it is a ruse, it still says something very, very real about what we are going through as well. And yes, I am aware that, the powers that be, they're, in their own way, they're telling the truth about what they've been doing to citizens, but they're reframing it, trying to reframe it and I think politicize it in order to throw people off what's really going on. That's what I think they're doing. I think they're throwing people off as to what's really going on through potentially politicizing Sergeant Scott's plight. And then we've got, the shootings, that's being politicized too, in order to take the focus away of what's really going on. And what's really going on is that you've got people being brainwashed and controlled, on a behavioral level en masse. If you've got technology so small it can literally fit into somebody's blood vessels, surely you can control their behavior. You've already got technology that can go on the inside of someone's body and destroy their cancer tumors. You don't seriously think that the same technology can go in and destroy somebody's organs? Like, come on, man. Like, people ain't using their brain. That's why if it's a ruse, which again, I don't think it is, by Sergeant Scott, I don't care if it is. I don't care if it is. It validates everything that we've been saying the whole time. So I don't care if it's a ruse. I don't care if it's something being used to kind of derail people. No, the truth is coming out. That's what matters. And when the truth is coming out, other victims are able to speak out. Other victims are able to arm themselves with information, able to defend themselves whenever and wherever possible. Listen, when you get the right information, all it takes is the right person to lead our movement forward. Getting the information out there is crucial. It doesn't matter about anything else. It doesn't matter about anything else. There's way too many technologies out there. There's way too many There's way too much documentation. The president of the United States at the time he was president, Bill Clinton, literally apologized to citizens for gang stalking them. So yeah, I ain't trying to hear a goddamn thing about, oh, it might be no. Even if it is, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Doesn't matter. And I never thought I'd say that. It does not matter. And while we can't get this shit to end in our lifetime, we can sure as shit make sure future generations are armed with this knowledge so that they can protect their loved ones. Yeah. But yeah. So I think that's it. Before I go though, this is probably gonna take another 5 to 10 minutes. I want to talk about this idea that everyone is targeted. This is true, right? But what I get really sick of is when gang stalkers talk about specific people that are being blacklisted and targeted, that people will come online and say everybody's targeted. What the fuck does that mean? Do you believe that this person is being targeted specifically by her government or not? And if you do, then why are you trying to diminish this person's experience and diminish this person's pain by saying we're all being targeted? Of course we're all being targeted. We're living on one big fucking slave ship. Of course we're all being targeted. But the problem that I have is that when people point it out, and when people point out specific experiences that are happening to them, they are automatically dismissed by these wishy-washy people who want to find a way to discredit gang stalking without discrediting it. So they'll come online and they'll say some bullshit like, oh, everybody's under surveillance. Who's everybody? Who's everybody? We know how science works, we know how medicine works, and we know how defense works. In order to be able to utilize the more successful of your operations, the more successful of your psychological warfare, and the more successful of your defense or pharmaceuticals, you have to experiment with the marginalized or with the demonized first. You got to experiment with them first. That means experimenting with the criminals and with the heavily marginalized. Anybody Anybody who is already ripe for the school to prison pipeline, or the, or the psychiatric industrial complex, or the military industrial complex, any human being who is directly within the prison, psychiatric, or military industrial complex alongside criminals, they are always going to be the ones who are experimented with most brutally, especially the one subject to the complexes the most easily. They are always going to be the ones who are experimented on or experimented with more brutally, with with more gleeful action, and with, like, it's always going to be those type of people who are experimented on first. And then on top of that, the numbers. You have to think about the numbers as well. It's likely to be millions rather than billions of the people who are getting the most brutal getting most brutally experimented on. It's likely to be in the millions rather than in the billions on this planet, because the idea is to take out the threat first. The idea is to take out anybody who's not assimilating, and then work on the rest. That's the idea. The idea is to take anybody who isn't assimilating and then work on the rest of the population. So who's everybody? Who is everybody? You can't be talking about weather modifications, because those have been around since the late 1930s. You don't bring that up. You never bring that up. You bring up all kinds of shit like surveillance. You bring up all kinds of shit like everybody's targeted. What does that mean? What do you mean, everybody? If you mean everybody's being brainwashed, yeah, everybody. I mean, there's nanodust out there. God knows how many people might have already been behavioral controlled by that. But the truth of the matter is that there is a specific system that relies upon hierarchy in order to get shit done. So when you're talking about everybody is targeted, who the fuck is everybody? Who the fuck is everybody? It's either you believe that the most marginalized people are being brutalized, or you don't. It's really very simple. It's either you believe that this is happening to people, or you don't. Don't come on my fucking page or any TI's fucking page about everybody. Do you believe the shit or don't you? And if you feel like you can't do anything about it, then why don't you just say that? Just say it. Just say you can't do anything about it and go. And leave the rest of the people who want to keep getting the word out and who want to appeal to people who might be able to do something about it. Leave us to get on with it. You can take your everybody gets targeted and go somewhere else with that. It's not helping anybody. It's not helping anybody. Oh shit. Oh shit. I know I sound harsh, but it's not helping anyone. It's either you believe the shit or you don't. And if you don't believe the shit, cool. Be on your way. Thank you. Goodbye. If you do believe it's happening, but you feel like you can't do something about it, it's okay. Sit this one out. Let us take over. Let us speak out. Let us say our piece. Let us do our thing. God be with you. You feel like you can't do anything about it, God be with you. Go do that somewhere else. We ain't working with that over here. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. Some arrogant prick came on my fucking Facebook talking about, oh, you seem so confident. They do that. They do that with people, you know. Black women especially. You seem so confident. Confident about what? I don't know for sure. I have a good idea, but I know how this shit works because it's of a combination of reading about history, reading about the Tuskegee experiments, Operation Paperclip, reading about the California eugenicists and how they work. Also reading up about different technologies like weather modification, which I said again has been around since at least the 1930s. Knowing about nanobots and, you know, nanotechnology, which I've known about since I was a fucking kid. In the 90s when Jeff Goldblum was talking about it in an advert on Channel 4. Like, not an advert, but like a small scientific program on Channel 4. I remember it well. Jeff Goldblum was talking about that shit, nanotechnology. In the 90s when I was a fucking kid. I know about, you know, I took all of that. I took all the history that I learned about through how people do things and why. And then I used it to form my own conjecture. So I don't know for sure, but I have a good idea. Meanwhile, Mr. Everybody goes through it. Can't give me no numbers. Can't give me any specifics about the technology being used. Talking about how advanced the technology is, but you can't give me no specifics. That sounds to me like a perp fishing for information. That sounds to me like a perp fishing for information. Sounds like somebody's bullshitting. Sounds like somebody's bullshitting to me. You don't talk about non-ionized radiation and how that might have contributed to the obesity problem. If there is an obesity problem, you haven't talked about how non-ionized radiation might be heightening mental illnesses. You haven't talked about any of that shit. You haven't talked about how pharmaceuticals play a role in this as well. You haven't talked about how the vaccines could have been affecting people. You haven't talked about any of that stuff. You're just saying everyone's being targeted, and then you want to fucking prod and poke me for information. Get the fuck out of here. At least I can explain shit. And then this person wants to turn around and say, I don't know what you're alluding to. Fuck off. Sorry, I just get a little bit annoyed when perps who are obvious perps try to act like they're not perps. It's annoying. But at least I get to teach people what I know. You know, if I ever find myself in an argument with somebody online, or I don't just take it as an internet argument, I take it as an opportunity to educate and be educated, because that's the point of like debates in the first place. But you know, there's going to be some people who are just going to waste your time and just going to chat shit. And this person online, they couldn't even get the name of the syndrome right. I'm thinking, no, you're a prick. Get off my page. Get off my page. No peace and love. Get the fuck off my page. Fucking prick. Get off my page, man. Dickhead. Sorry. He's a dickhead. Shit. But yeah. I'm sorry that my ramble didn't seem all the way that clear. I was taking pot shots at someone. Like, I'm not even sorry. I was taking pot shots. Seems like perp shit to me. I'm sorry. Getting online, getting on my fucking Facebook and wasting my time. Nah. Seemed like a perp to me, boy. Yeah. But yeah, at the time I wasn't annoyed. I just thought it was funny. Honestly. But I don't see arguments as arguments. I see them as teachable moments. And I've had a lot of debates online over the years, and it's taught me a lot about how people work. It's taught me a lot about how people work, and it makes me realize that people aren't really interested in getting to the truth. They're trying to convince themselves 9 times out of 10 of what it is they really believe. That's why some of them get bullying and some of them belittle each other. And I've been doing my fair share of belittling too. And, people gaslight and lie. And you'd be amazed at how many people do that shit. It's not just limited to abusers and wife beaters. The amount of people that use narcissistic tactics in order to win an argument, in order to try to convince themselves that what they believe is true. So, you know, debates, it really teaches you that people are not stress testing their beliefs at all. They're just thinking that the strength of their emotions or the strength of their desperation, their need for it to be true, is going to be enough. And that's what people rely on, and, you know, in order to win the argument. You know, debates online has taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how people work. Most people are not as smart as they want to be, but they're not as dumb as they think they are. Very manipulative. Most people are very manipulative, and they don't realize how manipulative they are, or at least they do, and they pretend like they don't. Most people are not smart, but they're cunning. Most people are not smart, but they're cunning, and they weaponize their ignorance. They weaponize their ignorance against one another, so that they don't have to learn, so that they don't have to grow, so that they don't have to get better. They weaponize their ignorance a lot of the time. And then when you call them out on it, they gaslight you, and that's something that people with cunning do. And a lot of people do it. In fact, most people do that shit. And it's kind of scary how we think that this is limited to so-called villains, when it's literally something that almost everyone does. That is terrifying, bro. That's terrifying. But yeah, most people weaponize their ignorance against one another, and then somehow or some way they try to act like that they're smarter than the person they're talking to. It's really quite scary, actually. It's really, really quite scary. But yeah, who's everyone? When it comes to gang stalking and being targeted, who the fuck is everyone? Sit down. Sit down. If you don't want to deal with it, you don't have to, but tell me that. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And that just doesn't just go for people online. It goes for everybody. Like, either I won't talk to you about it again, or I just won't talk to you. But like, if you don't want to deal with it, say that. Anyway, as for the June readings, either tomorrow or Monday. But right now I gotta rest up. And try to manage this flow, which is a pain in the ass. But anyway, I love you guys. Take care. Peace and blessings. Bye-bye.